What's going on, guys? So this is going to be a really fun video for me to shoot. I'm going to be discussing my experiences dating as a guy with long hair. I'm going to be taking a look at the good, the bad, and the indifferent in between. Let's start off with the bad. I've always suspected and I've always known throughout the growing process that long hair is going to be something that polarizes women. Some will really like it and others will absolutely hate it. And you only have to take a look at how Jason Momoa is received to actually understand that. There's plenty of women that think he's really sexy, and there's also plenty of women that think he looks sweaty and just generally a bit dirty. And you're talking about really someone who is the poster boy for long hair at this moment in time. So, you know, that was exactly what I expected. I thought there'd be some women that would really go for it and others that really would not. So around about January time, December time, I started using dating apps again. And I actually didn't change the pictures that I had from when I'd previously used dating apps. So we're going back to sort of 2017, 2018 kind of time when essentially, well, actually, I'll link the pictures that I used then. And obviously, as you can see, it's a very different look to what I have now. And being honest, those pictures have always performed really well on dating apps. You know, I've always had a fair few amount of messages and I've always done pretty well on the matches front too. And the way dating apps work is based off something that's known as an ELO score. And an ELO score basically ranks you in the same way that an online game ranks you so that you're matched with people that are of similar level to you. So if you're in the top 20% of guys based on your ELO score, you basically have access to most of the women on Tinder because Tinder decides that you're a high quality male and therefore decides that it wants to show you to many women. So I stayed with those pictures, and as was the case previously, I got quite a lot of first messages. So rather than change them just because I didn't have any good quality pictures, what I would do is I would wait until I'd maybe had 2 or 3 messages with the girl, and then I'd just send a photo of what I look like now, just saying, being honest, my hair's grown a little bit, this is what I look like now. This is when I realized just how polarizing long hair actually is. Some women flat out replied saying, nope, don't like it. Some women just didn't reply. Other women said things like, well, that hair's grown, too long for me. Others would say, I won't date a man who's got better hair than me. Others just came back and said, no, I don't like your nose ring. I don't like your tattoos. And it's interesting because these are all things that, you know, we see ourselves every day essentially, so we don't realize how people see us. But I think what I was really experiencing was that women liked the short haired look because I looked safe, responsible. I looked like I had my life in check, and I probably look quite successful. You look at what I look like now, and to some people, I probably give off a very different vibe. And I think it's interesting because with the short hair, and in particular, if you look at that photo of me wearing the suit, if you're thinking of what a woman who's looking for a more serious relationship would probably consider, a guy with short hair and a well-groomed beard in a suit probably perfectly represents that. Whereas what I look like now probably in no way represents that. It's probably a lot for someone to get their head around. So looking at that, I'm not actually that surprised. And it's also really interesting because there were women that were so anti-men with long hair that I can't even explain it. They were just like, I would never ever date a man with long hair. And, you know, on one hand, that's a shame, but you have to think about it from the perspective of, you know, why you're doing it. And if you're growing your hair for other people, that's a problem. If you're growing your hair for the approval of other people, that's a problem. And I talk about myself as a dating and authenticity coach. And part of the authenticity is about being authentic to yourself and looking and behaving in a way that feels real to you. But even I was challenged by just how much some women disliked it. And there was a part of me that just thought, fuck it, I want to go back to having the success that I was having previously before. Let's just cut it. Let's just go back to that because it seems easier. I mean, I didn't, and I'm really glad that I didn't, but it was definitely crossed my mind. And there's a lot of studies based on active users of dating apps' mental health versus non-active users of dating apps' mental health. And what they tend to find is that people that use dating apps a lot tend to have lower self-esteem because they're being objectified a lot more. And that was definitely my experience using dating apps with longer hair. I really did feel my self-esteem went at points just because it felt like the rejections were far more than the acceptance. But, you know, it is what it is. You carry on and you just have to be mindful of that. The other thing that was bad and also really frustrating is that people were really quick to make judgments about what they thought you'd be like based on your hair. And, you know, you hear things quite frequently like, you look like a vegan. You look like you're into yoga, you look like a metler. And of course, there's absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things whatsoever. But when you hear something a lot and you're told something that you're told that you represent something which in no way you do, it actually gets pretty frustrating. And again, I thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna cut my hair because I'm getting sick of being compared to these things. But you have to just get used to it, and you just have to accept that when people judge you, it's a reflection of the way they see the world and a reflection of the way they see long hair versus what it actually represents. Let's take a look at my indifferent experience. And this one is actually really fascinating and links in a little bit with the first one too. Previously, I always used to attract what you'd think of as pretty successful, pretty well-mannered, pretty, polite, well put together women who had very successful jobs and seemed very much ready for the next stage in their life. And by that, what I mean is these were women in their mid to late 20s that had a good career, earned good money, and were now looking for the man that they wanted to settle down with. With short hair, I obviously look like that type of man. With long hair, I absolutely do not. So I shifted, and what I now attracted was women that were a lot more free-spirited, women that had done a lot of work on themselves, women that were slightly more sexually empowered, women that were possibly slightly bi-curious, women that had had a lot more life experience, including things like, including sexual things, including drugs, and really just women that were a lot less judgmental of the world. Now, for me, that's ideal. I find all of those things much better than someone that's living a very narrow narrative around their life, basically just trying to settle down because that's what they feel ready to do. But it was interesting because with short hair, I never ever attracted those type of women. The type of women that I attracted were very much the successful women that wanted the partner and wanted the husband. So it was a lot for me to get my head around going on dates with women with very different outlooks on the world. Exciting, but just very different. Now we come to the good. And I'll start off with one that's going to be good for some people, but bad for others. You really, really do stand out a lot more. And think about it. How many men do you know that firstly have long hair and secondly actually carry off long hair? I know plenty of guys that have tried long hair and then cut it because they realise it didn't suit them. I know plenty of guys that have done long hair and then cut it and gone back to short because they couldn't deal with the constant judging. And I also know plenty of guys that just don't have suitable hair types to grow it long. So just by being a guy that has long hair, and this is 3 years worth of hair growth, which is pretty significant amount of time when you think about it, you're already really going to stand out because it's so different to the way that people normally look. And combine that standing outness with the confidence that you have to have in order to stand out. It's actually quite powerful, and a lot of women will respect your confidence. They may not like your long hair, but they'll respect your confidence in the fact that you've stuck with it and the fact that you're okay with it. And the other really interesting good point, and this was something that I found particularly exciting, was basically that you get told a lot that you give off a very sexual energy, both on dates and just amongst people when you're chatting, or just basically just whenever you're kind of having those deep reflective conversations. So, I've done a lot of personal development work, and one of the things that I, heard quite frequently was that I gave off a very, very overtly sexual energy. And I heard it on dates as well, and it just became quite a reoccurring theme. Now, some people might not like that, and a lot of women will find that actually quite repulsive because it will probably feel slightly intimidating. And I think that that's definitely something to be mindful of. But if you're thinking of guys like Jason Momoa, Jared Leto, Russell Brand, Pete Wicks from Towie even, these are guys that emit sexual energy very quickly. And like I say, some women will find it really attractive, others will find it really, really overpowering. But I would imagine the types of women that find it really overpowering will be the types of women that want something more serious. They'll be the types of women that want a guy who looks more stable. And we also know that one of the things that women factor in when they're choosing a potential date from a dating app is how trustworthy that guy looks. And I think guys with short hair will instinctively look more trustworthy just because they look more normal. And I think that that's a trade-off that I've really experienced. You're losing that trustworthiness and that safety, but you're taking on a sexual, high energy kind of vibe, which some people will be drawn to, others won't. But for me, that's great. That's the vibe I'd rather give off, and that's the way I'd rather be perceived. But it's just something to be mindful of. So in conclusion, it's a common question I think most men have whenever they change something about themselves. Will women like it, and will it get me laid? Yes, women will like it, and yes, it will get you laid. But the metaphor that I would really use is that it's almost like chart music versus non-chart music. Chart music is popular because it's relatable, people can understand it, and people can quickly access it. And that will be your guys with short hair. And just as you get with chart music, you get some fantastic stuff. So there'll be guys that look great with short hair. But on the other hand, not chart music, you have things like heavy metal, and you have things like blues, genres that are still popular, but they just don't get the mainstream attention, and they're just not liked by everybody. But what you'll find is that people that like heavy metal music and people that like blues music will be super into that genre. So you'll find that the pool of women that's attracted to you gets smaller, but you'll find that that pool of women will be more attracted to you than they would be to guys with short hair. Or you'll find that just because you're such a niche and that pool is looking for that particular niche, it's almost just going to be like catnip, because there's not that many guys that look like that, and you're instinctively sliding into that niche. So that's definitely something to be mindful of. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, I am now offering one-on-one coaching on the link down below. So give my website a look, give it a check out. I think it's awesome, and I think you'll find a lot of content on there too. I'd also say follow me on Instagram, because I've now started posting some daily content focused around style, dating, hair, obviously. So I'll link my handle down below as well. Thank you so much for watching this video.